So, do you believe cloud seeding is the cause of violent storms that we're seeing in Houston, Dallas, Dubai? Um, and what is cloud seeding for people that might not be fully familiar with it?
Cloud seeding is when they take business class planes into the atmosphere and release certain gases and chemicals into the clouds to make it rain more. This is very like the open secret in Dubai because it doesn't rain that much in the desert. But them Ferraris and Porsches and Rolls Royces were swimming in Olympic-sized pools throughout the streets a couple months ago. And then Houston had a bunch of storms, and Dallas is going through one now. And I think when you start to play with nature and play with God, we've seen this with Monsanto and genetically modified foods. And it's part of the reason why we have sickness running rampant in the United States of America. Opposed to if you come to Vietnam or Bali or Bahamas or Mexico or London, the food quality is better. Like the dog food quality is better than the processed food in the United States. So there've been a lot more storms. And I think as a result, we're seeing these storms kick up and be a lot more violent. I know a lot of times we talk about climate change, but sometimes there's some intentionality behind some of this stuff. And this isn't like something I read on Infowars.com and Alex Jones and shit. Like, this is mainstream news about cloud seeding. So maybe we can insert a clip and play a clip about it.
We're here in Utah, where they have been running cloud seeding program. There are 42 cloud seeding programs across the American West. Many of them have aerial parts where they take airplanes like this with flares attached. Inside these flares, silver iodide, a microscopic particle that acts like a magnet for water. So they shoot those microscopic particles into a storm that's already going to produce snow and just enhance that snow. By the end of the season, in a good program, we're told you can make 3 to 15% more snowpack. Cloud seeding has been around since the 1940s and 50s, but what has really advanced is the number of ground seeding projects. So this little shack on wheels has a pipe and a propane attached. During a storm, they can remotely set that off. It sends up silver iodide, little microscopic particles, into the storm. Gets sucked up into the cloud, makes it snow more. Like a little snow boost. And this is the thing that makes it happen. So this is a ground cloud seeder.
But people need to stop trying to mess with these weather patterns because it does end up having a butterfly-like effect later down the line.
So, but how do you feel about just climate change in general?
I think, of course, we've done tremendous damage to the planet. We're paying for it. Like now, even some places where this colder climates are becoming warmer, polar caps are starting to melt. Like, it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. 1,000%. But I mean, they knew that 1,000 years ago. Like the oil companies knew it, they just didn't care.
It's one of these things that you see firsthand. I know people are like, well, the climate has always changed throughout world time. We had the ice age. That's obviously climate change. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. And I'm not saying what the cause of climate change is, but it's undeniable that the earth is getting hotter.
Absolutely.
That's undeniable, right?
Let's just take New York. You've been there your whole life, but I've never seen it rain this much in New York over the last year. I've been scared going to New York now. Like, man, if I get rained in, I'm stuck for 5 days.
The whole winter, fall. I mean, we getting good weather now. Thank God.
Yeah.
But for like 4 or 5 months, it was rain. You know, we never had hurricanes. Now we've had hurricanes before. Absolutely. We used to have like, really bad rainstorms, maybe once every 5 years, like torrential. Now it happens once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Even like, housing, you got to flood proof your house and do different things. Like these are things. It's much warmer. It doesn't really snow as much as it used to. It probably snows like one time a year. It used to have blizzards.
Absolutely.
Heavy snowstorms. Doesn't really snow that much. Very mild winters.
Same in Chicago.
Winter and fall is like the same thing. There's really no real winter. Mm-hmm. No, it's getting warmer. I mean, I went to Puerto Rico and we was actually looking at the ocean and they were showing us that's where Pirates of the Caribbean got filmed. And I'm like, where? They was like, where you looking at right now? That used to be an island. And that was only like probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, they're like, yeah, well, now it's covered with water, so you can't see it. But that used to actually be an island. And they filmed the movie there. So Yeah, as far as if you believe in, as far as the political aspect of it, like that's not. I don't care about your thoughts on this, to be honest with you. But it's not debatable. It's not
Yeah.
debatable that the Earth is getting warmer, right? And
Yeah.
there's effects of the Earth getting warmer. I mean, you see it, and a lot of these coastal properties.
California is in shambles. You can't even get insurance. You got to be rich to have insurance on your house in California now.
This is a financial topic, right? Because it's like, okay, you know, everybody wants to live in Miami, but you're gonna have problems with these oceanfront properties and these waterfront properties. I mean, it's going to happen at some point in time. It's just a matter of when. But
Yeah.
I was talking to realtors and they're like, yo, so many people, they got so much money right now in Miami, they don't even care. They're like, I'll worry about 20 years, 30. That's not really my top concern.
Matter.
Right? I could ball now. That's the only thing I'm worried about. And if that's what you know, hey, fine, go ahead. But at the very least, you should know. But that's also why when you look at a city like Miami, like Overtown and Little Haiti, these areas are becoming more desirable because they're actually, when you look at the flood, I've actually looked at flood maps of Miami and I've looked at global warming maps of Miami. And there's only a few highlands places in Miami. Little Haiti, these are places that are actually the most safest
zones. Yep.
They're the safest zones, right? So it's no surprise that you see gentrification, you see it start changing different things of nature, because literally what would originally be thought as the most undesirable part, because if you go to Miami, who wants to live inland, right? Everybody wants to live by the water. But then when you really start to look at, okay, not only just from a global warming and you might not have anywhere to live, but just from a regular flood standpoint, right? Like Brickell gets flooded all the time
now.
Yep. So it's like, all right, you know, when you look at it from that standpoint, and it's like, okay, now what area is flood proof? Now the areas that were once the least desirable are starting to become the most desirable. Right. So now you start to see the whole transition play as far as real estate. Now you start to see gentrification. Now you start to see people move in, home prices go up, new businesses, different things. Like, it's never by accident. It's same thing happens in Brazil. I was actually studying this in Brazil. You know, they put the favelas, which favelas is the slums in Brazil, and they put them in the hills, right? Because it's like, okay, who really wants to live in the mountains, right? And everybody wants to live in the beach. But then they realized that some of those favelas have some of the best views of like Christ the Redeemer and the beach and all of that. So once again, now you start the gentrification to move people out, relocation of people like 5 hours outside of Rio, different things that nature, because they realized, okay, now we made a mistake. This is actually prime real estate. Same thing. Even if you look at New York, like you look at like Queensbridge, right? Queensbridge is in Long Island City, which is right on the water of Queens. It overlooks Manhattan. Previously, that was a bad neighborhood. Now Long Island City is like one of the nicest neighborhoods in New York. You can't even go, like every restaurants, hookah lounges, hotels, everything. Like, and all they did was just build around the projects, because you really can't. It's be tremendously hard to knock down 96 buildings. Well, that's how large Queensbridge Projects is, 96 buildings. It's kind of hard to knock down 96 buildings, right? So what they did was they just kind of made it an oasis, and all around now you wouldn't even really realize that there was a project there unless you actually went looking for it, right? Like just private, the buildings that they building are higher than the project buildings, so you really can't even, you wouldn't even tell them. Then it's like, you know, they it's very secure now, a bunch of cops everywhere, they got the sensory thing, so it's not a lot of violence, anything like that. And now you're just able to just, you know, keep people in that one area pocket, self-contained. But now everything around that is extremely high priced real estate, right? Because that's actually prime time real estate. So appreciate what you have when you have it, because sometimes you don't even realize that what you think is the worst area is actually the best area.
Could be, yep. And you know who doesn't think this is a conspiracy? Bill Gates. If you go look at all that farmland that he's bought, they're all in the zones that won't flood in middle of America. Whenever someone of that, you can, regardless if you think he's evil or not, one of the wealthiest men of all time, when he buys up that much land, I think the number one land buyer by one person in the United States, there's a pattern. You guys go on Google Maps and look at it, or Google Earth. They're all in non-flood zones. So if a crisis breaks out and the coasts go through trouble, he'll have enough land to rent you and sell you genetically modified mosquitoes or whatever else we're going to eat if we go through the Hunger Games. You got to look at what the elite are doing to be able to plan properly.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Yeah, Bill Gates owns the most real estate in America.
Insane. Dr. William H. I don't want no smoke. There's some people I don't want drama with. The Clintons, William H., Hove, who else? Buffett. Oh, God.
But like you said, I mean, it's interesting, right? His real estate, he didn't like, his play wasn't to try to buy Manhattan or buy all of Hollywood. He's buying places that nobody would even care about.
Yeah, and it flies under the radar. And so are the Chinese. They bought up a bunch of quote unquote undesirable areas quietly in tandem with William.